Silent Professional, 22 Smoking Aces. Good afternoon, people. So, welcome to the 22 Smoking Aces supplements page. My name's Dan. I'm one of the Tier 1 athletes here at 22 Smoking Aces, and I think it's time I put some of my knowledge and information out there for you, the people, to learn something. Obviously, I've got extensive knowledge in supplements when it comes to kind of sports nutrition supplements. My job, in terms of what I do and make my living, I'm actually sales manager for a significant size US-based sports nutrition brand. So needless to say, you know, this is kind of my bread and butter. And obviously I've been talking with a lot of the team members, the boss, and a few of the other guys about supplements, you know, kind of cut through the bullshit, make some recommendations, educate you on when you do buy supplements, what to look for, what sort of ingredients to look for, the difference between ingredient A and ingredient B, and how to put together the perfect supplement routine for yourself. So with this being the first video, obviously I've got a lot of ideas, a lot of topics that I'm going to cover with you. But obviously one I wanted to do, which I think is important right now, especially with, you know, with the pandemic and things, people are on budgets, people are kind of looking at health over performance, you know, and that's just from experience. So I just thought I would just kind of draw up on the trusted anabolic whiteboard over here, you know, some ideas of the difference between essential supplements and luxuries. Now, of course, any one of these is interchangeable. Okay, this is strictly based on my opinion and my experience. And there's a lot of these, like I said, there's some of you watching, you may think that they fall into a different category. You may think there's something in the luxury categories in the essentials and vice versa. But from someone that understands how the body works and understands nutrition and supplementation, I've tried to keep it as minimalistic and as basic as you can. So jumping straight into the essentials. Now, once again, people, this is based on my experience and my opinion. So top of the list, we have fish oils. Now, unless you are what's called a pescatarian, which means you just live strictly on fish as your protein and fat source, then I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to be getting your complete omega-3, 6 and 9. Now, I mentioned omega-3, 6 and 9 because everyone is always taught from a young age about the importance of omega-3s when you're young, giving you brain health, and that is true and that is correct. However, what they forget to talk about is omega-6 and 9. Now, personally, I see a massive difference when I actually take, you know, a quality fish oil supplement that has all omega-3, 6 and 9. So you can either take them separately, you can take them independently. But for me personally, what I like to use is I like to use krill oil. Krill oil is one of the purest forms of fish oils, simply because krill themselves, they're actually bottom feeder fish. So what that means is rather than being at the top with, you know, a lot of the top feeders that live on debris, food waste, rubbish and all that, and all the kind of all the bad stuff of the world, they feed on the bottom of the ocean, which basically means that they get in the, you know, the best nutrients possible, and that that actually transfers into their DNA. So when you actually have krill oil, you're getting a complete source of omega-3, 6 and 9. If anything from this video, fish oils, okay, and like I said, try and go for omega-3, 6 and 9. So next on the list, we've got vitamin C and D3. Now, a lot of people will think, well, a multivitamin is more important, and there's a lot of science for and against it, but from my experience, I personally believe that a multivitamin is a waste of time unless you literally have no solid, decent macronutrients and micronutrient foods in your diet. You know, if you're someone that lives on the typical Western and fast food diet, you know, it could be like a fry up in the morning, it could be a Tesco meal deal for lunch and then a pizza on the way home and snacking. Maybe a multivitamin is best, but I'm going to go on the assumption here that every single person watching this video, or most of you, are on some kind of regimen in terms of fitness or whatever. So vitamin C and D3, particularly to actually boost the immune system. Vitamin C is probably the most underestimated and misunderstood vitamin there is, in my opinion. Vitamin C is found obviously in oranges and a lot of citrus fruits. It's also found in different meats and protein sources, but vitamin C as a supplement is the most effective way to boost your immune system. Now, I'm going to do another video on the importance of dosing and making sure you're getting the correct dosages of different supplements to get the full benefit and you're not just wasting your time. But me personally, I'll go anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. That may sound high, but that is actually where science suggests that it actually has, an effective impact on the immune system. And D3, because D3 and vitamin C, they work synergistically to boost the immune system. As you probably know, vitamin D comes from the sun. Being over here in lovely sunny United Kingdom, we don't get that much sun. Even if we do, it's either too minimal in the winter or it's too hot in the summer. So we're not getting that same sun they are in the Mediterranean or in the South America, etc. So vitamin C and D3 are on my essential list. Now whey. Now obviously this could be interchangeable. Now concentrate, isolate, hydrolysate, different blends, casein and all that sort of stuff. So don't worry, those videos will be coming. But a whey protein, antioxidants. Now that sounds like a bit of a fancy term. You've probably heard more of them recently due to the fact that everyone's in uproar about COVID and immune system. Antioxidants, in my opinion, are essential because the same as the fish oils and the vitamin C and D3. If your body has not got good immunity and you're not able to fight off disease and infection, then you're not going to be able to get the consistent training going. Everyone has that person where they're always ill in their family or in their workplace. I've got a few that I know of. There's people that they'll be hitting it hard for 2 months, then you don't see them for 2 weeks. Then they'll be hitting it hard for a month, then they're off for a week because they're constantly getting ill, because they've got poor immune systems, because they're not feeding the machine correctly, but they're not taking the right supplements. So antioxidants, in particular, the one that I personally love is one called N-Acetylcysteine. N-Acetylcysteine is a fantastic ingredient. When you take it, what it does is it converts in your body. It's a precursor to something called L-glutathione. L-glutathione is like the powerhouse body's own produced antioxidant. It basically helps to pull any kind of toxins from the liver. NAC is an ingredient that is used for a lot of people who are recovering alcoholics, people with substance abuse. It can actually help to rejuvenate the liver. But what it does in healthy humans or people that don't have substance abuse problems like alcohol and things, it actually helps to fight free radicals and get rid of them from the system. So anything you can take that's going to boost L-glutathione is definitely it's definitely good to go. People do take intravenous L-glutathione, which I know is available in the States, parts of Europe. I know there are some companies in the UK that do the same thing, but unless you've got access to that and you trust and you know the source that you're doing, taking glutathione as a capsule or as a powder is not very bioavailable, so your body's going to just absorb it very poorly, and you'll pay a lot of money for glutathione if it's in the form of either a powder or a capsule. So taking NAC, which you can buy from Holland & Barrett, from Amazon, from your local sports nutrition supplement retailer, NAC is fantastic. Once again, we'll come on to dosing and things, but you want to dose it at least 1,000 milligrams a day to get the full benefit. Anti-inflammation. So the worst thing about injury prevention is nowadays a lot of people they only do something when they have an injury. They have tennis elbow, they have tendonitis, they tear a ligament, they have arthritis, calcification. That's when they tend to do something, and usually it's too late. I'm more of a prevention's better than cures kind of person. So anti-inflammation for me, not just in the joints, but also in the organs, the digestive system in particular, which we'll come on to now. The best thing you can take as a supplement for inflammation is something called curcumin. Curcumin is what is in turmeric, which is the spice that is now, it's kind of considered a superfood. Curcumin is the chemical inside turmeric that gives the anti-inflammatory properties. So if you're looking for, say, a good joint supplement, one that's obviously going to help with injuries or help prevent injuries, if you're someone that has, you do a lot of hard running, a lot of hiking, you're a cyclist, you're an athlete, whatever, you're a powerlifter, strongman, taking a good joint supplement will be great, but make sure you look for the anti-inflammation benefits. It's all good and well pounding glucosamine and MSM, which are great joint supplements, but if you're not doing anything about the cause of the problem, which is the inflammation, you're just pissing in the wind. So I would go for anti-inflammatory as an essential as well. And then finally, gut health, which ties into this. Now, there's a lot of research and studies that actually have proven that gut health is directly linked to brain health. So happy gut, happy mind. If you're feeding crap and poisonous and sugars and refined processed carbohydrates into your gut, that's going to have an adverse effect on your mind and your whole being. So happy gut, happy mind. Gut health is very important. It's only something I've taken seriously in the last couple of years, I'd say. You know, when you're in your 20s, you kind of feel bulletproof. You can eat McDonald's 3 times a day if you want and not really feel any effects. Now I'm 32 and obviously I take things like this more seriously. The obvious ones is pre and probiotics. You know, you can get something similar like Yakult from Asda, which is great. But I would actually go for, you know, like at least, you know, 5-10 million probiotic cells. Some brands to recommend: Doctor's Best, Nature's Aid, Swanson, Solgar. Obviously, you know, if you want me to go over this in more detail about what specific products to take, then comment below. But yeah, gut health is very important. So, you know, there's things like Resveratrol is a fantastic ingredient. Resveratrol is found in red wine, so there's an excuse to drink loads of red wine. But no, in all seriousness, you know, 3 to 4 glasses of red wine a week, which I do because I enjoy it anyway. A nice Rioja or a nice Italian or South American red is going to help with gut health. But seriously, pre and probiotics. So just to recap over that, okay? So we're looking at fish oils. Krill oil is my chosen one. If you want it, whatever your chosen source is, make sure it's a good source of omega-3 and 6 and 9, not just the 3. Vitamin C and D3 for the immune system. You know, you want 3 to 5 grams a day of vitamin C and probably 2 to 2,000 micrograms a day of vitamin D3. Whey protein, once again, this is person dependent. You know, if you're someone that is not very active, avoid them at all costs. I bought into it when I was 18. You know, I bought a big bag of mass gainer that tasted as good as a McDonald's milkshake. And yes, the scales went up after 2 months, but I realized that it went just on my face and around my tummy, simply because it's just filled with sugar, corn syrup, just fillers and chemicals to make it taste good and just pack it with calories. You can make a solid weight gain shake with just stuff you can buy in the supermarket. You just need whole eggs or egg whites, preferably, peanut butter, oats, some fruit, maybe some olive oil, or maybe some frozen fruit, a scoop of ice cream, and you can make it as tasty as you want, as thick or as creamy as you want, and it's going to be all stuff that you know where it's come from. So avoid them at all costs. Carb powders, obviously, there's a lot of brands now that are doing carb powders. Carb powders are a very, very, very a handy tool to have when you need them, okay? When you need them, okay? If you're doing 3-hour workouts, or you're training for an Ironman or a marathon, or, you know, you're doing long, intense sessions, then you may need it. But for the most part, if you're doing hour to hour and a half sessions, even if you're doing 2 a days, if you're getting all your complex, good, solid carbohydrates from food, then you don't need a carb powder, but they are there as a luxury. So obviously this list can go on and on. There's more supplements than I even understand there are. There's bars, there's like ZMA, there's carnitine, there's so many, and they all have their place, some more so than others. But in my opinion, if you're on a budget and you want to you know, categorize supplements between essentials and luxuries, these are essentials, and these and others I haven't listed are luxuries, essentials and luxuries. So I just wanted to touch base. This is obviously the first of many videos to come. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you stayed along for the ride. Any questions on any of these, feel free to comment below, or you can get at me on Instagram, which is at NotYourAverageDan T1LT. Check out the 22 Smoking Aces, bunch of savages and animals, yeah, make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the like, look at the other content, whatever you need, whether it's flexibility training, mobility work, motivation, information, and you're just curious about what the team are doing, then feel free to just, you know, hit any of us up for any messages, any requests on any supplements. If you want me to go into detail about sleep aids, if you want me to talk about why vitamin C and D3 are important on a molecular level, I can do that. So either way, Not Your Average Dan, signing out. Until next time, people, have a good one. We're back again. Starting professional, 22 crazy smoking aces. What's happening, people? So I'm coming back to you now with another video, obviously to follow on the first one we did, talking the difference between essential and luxury supplements. Once again, this is down to just my opinion, based on my knowledge and experience of spending nearly 6 years in the supplement industry. So of all the topics that I've kind of put out there that I wanted to do, this one was a hot one. What's the best pre-workout for me? Now, this video I could probably do 10 different in 10 different ways, because there's so much taboo around pre-workouts. There's so much information. There's a lot of misunderstanding of information. There's a lot of companies that baffle you with marketing, and they've got shit formulas. And then there's brands out there that have insane formulas, but they're not popular products because they don't really market it well. So I just want to kind of give you a basic understanding in 2021 of what's available out there and what you can actually do to basically enhance your training. So without further ado, jumping into it now. What's the best pre-workout? Now, before any of this becomes relevant, okay, so ignore the whiteboard and just listen to me. Now, best is different for everyone, okay? If you're a weekend warrior, you work your job, you go to the gym of an evening and weekend to get a really good pump because you want to look good. You want to look good when you go to the beach on holiday, when you go to the nightclub, whatever. That's fine. The pre-workout you need is different to someone that is, a special forces operator that is going to be, operating behind enemy lines, or someone that works on a building site all day and wants to be super big and strong for his job to be lumping concrete up and down scaffolding all day. So you need to first of all identify what it is you're training for. Are you training for performance? Are you training to look good? Are you training to lift weight? Are you training to move as fast as you possibly can? Are you someone like an MMA fighter that needs to have all of the above? Do you need to be able to have good cardio, good flexibility, good power output, good endurance? So the first thing you need to sit down and identify, and we'll do other videos on this, on how to build a pre-workout. You've got to identify what the purpose and the reason for doing it is. So I'm just generalizing here, okay? So nowadays, when a lot of people hear pre-workout, especially people that may not necessarily be experiencing them, the first thing they think of is stimulants, okay? So that is where pre-workout started. Back in the good old days of Ultimate Orange, and then there was things like Jack 3D, which obviously was then banned. It was all about the stimulants. It was all about, heading to the gym after a long day of work, tired. You take a scoop of pre-workout, you down it, and within 30 minutes, you're ready to smash through walls. That was what pre-workouts, that was where they started. They've now evolved into something that can help you get so much productivity out of your training, not just give you a boost in energy. So stimulants. Now, first of all, we've got caffeine. It's the most common, it's the cheapest, it's effective, it works. Obviously, I've written they're dependent because dosage-wise, it all depends on the individual. Someone can take 400 milligrams of caffeine and go to bed within 20 minutes. Other people, all they've got to do is just have half a cup of coffee and they're wired all evening. So everyone is different, but caffeine is obviously the most common one. When it comes to caffeine, there's actually different blends of caffeine. So you've got something like caffeine anhydrous, which is basically is one of the cheapest, more commonly found forms in pre-workouts. Caffeine anhydrous hits your system within 10 to 15 minutes. So that's what kind of you feel on the way to the gym, or, after your warm up, you start to feel the energy from caffeine. There's something called Dicaffine Malate, which is basically they bond two caffeine molecules to malic acid, and that's why it's Dicaffine Malate. There's a patent out there called Infinergy. We use some of their blends in our products. That's basically another form of caffeine. There's a lot more, but obviously caffeine is dependent on the individual, so I can't recommend what to take. The sweet spot for me is around 300 milligrams. I feel I'm productive on that. I feel like I can focus, I can dial in, but I don't feel like I've taken like a class A substance, if you know what I'm saying. Then we've got Teocrine and Dynamine. These are they're very similar. Teocrine is basically, it's quite a new ingredient on the market. It's a really good ingredient. And what Teocrine does is, Teocrine actually gives you the focus without the increased heart rate. So you see Teocrine in a lot of gaming supplements, a lot of nootropic supplements, because it gives you the caffeine-like effect without stimulating the kind of nervous system and getting the heart rate up, which is the last thing you want if you're going to be sitting an exam, or you're going to be doing a lecture, or you're going to be just, you know, you need intense focus. So Teocrine is great. Dynamine is basically another variant of Teocrine and caffeine. These three together work very well. Okay, you can expect to not feel jittery. You shouldn't feel jittery unless you've taken too much of it. You're not going to get a come down from it. They're all natural ingredients. So caffeine, Teocrine and Dynamine are something you'll see a lot more in now new modern pre-workouts. Now the exotics. So this is kind of like the wild, wild west. You know, it started off back in the day with ephedra, which was essentially ephedrine, you know, which is what they give people who are in anaphylactic shock. It's essentially pure adrenaline. Very dangerous if you're using it as a supplement. Does it work? Yes. In my opinion, it's counterproductive. Which is 2-amino-isoheptane is one of the blends. Its status in the UK currently is supposedly legal. I don't know how long that will last for, however, but that's going to give you a similar effect. There's things like Araya gerensis, there's Biophytum, there's loads. You know, these underground labs are always popping up. Personally, if it's me, if you want to err on the side of caution and you're not really a stim junkie, you don't really want that kind of heart attack, crazy headache pounding pre-workout effect, which I personally don't like, then I would stick with either any of these or all three of them. Okay, the exotics is dependent on you, so it depends. You know, if you want things that has got synephrine in it, hordenine, that's fine, it'll work, but just be careful and cycle on and off them so you don't become too used to them. Now, the big one, performance, that's what we're all here for. You know, we're all here to be the best we can be, whether you're training to get in the military, whether you're training to be a professional fighter, whether you are looking to improve, you know, your CrossFit performance. It doesn't matter what it is, performance is where it's at. So there's so many ingredients, but I thought I would put 4 on there that I've used and I know work, and they have science behind them. So, as I mentioned in the previous video, we've got creatine. Okay, now creatine is 101 years old. It works, it's studied, it's tried, it's tested, it's used all the time and continues to produce results. Creatine can come in many forms. The oldest form is something called creatine monohydrate. It's the one you can buy, you know, for like 15 quid for like 150 servings online or from your local nutrition store. Creatine works, okay? What I like about creatine is it's very versatile. So the first thing that it will do above anything else, if you dose it correctly, which is why I'll come on to dose now, the first thing it'll do is it'll increase your power output. So you'll be able to get more reps with said weight, or you'll be able to get, you know, kind of like, you're kind of going into the remit of beating PBs. Now, this is not going to be every session, because otherwise, if it was that good, then obviously, you know, it would be more expensive than it is. And there's no such thing as a miracle pill, as you guys know. So creatine, obviously, the second thing it'll do as well as boost performance. It's going to increase your energy. So I don't mean energy as in, you know, it'll give you more mental alertness, because it doesn't really work like that. That's what the stimulants are for. The creatine is going to help you in terms of like endurance, like muscular endurance. So if, for instance, we take a 100-meter sprinter, and let's say he can run 100 meters in 11 seconds, and then you dose him up on creatine, he will be able to probably shave half a second off his time just from using creatine, if everything is done correctly, because it increases the ATP-PC system. So it's going to basically improve your muscular endurance. It's going to improve as well cellular hydration. So it's going to help. Creatine secondarily works as an osmolyte. An osmolyte is something that will help to pull water into the muscle. So unfortunately, creatine has got a black eye amongst the bodybuilding community. Among water retention, it puts water on you. Well, there is an element of truth to that, but usually it's because the person has poor genetics, poor diet, and they're eating too many calories. That's why if you're on a clean diet, you're eating good, clean, whole foods, you're training hard, you're drinking enough water, you shouldn't get overspill of water and look bloated. That shouldn't happen. Okay, what it does do is it'll basically help the muscle. It'll help the muscle swell. If you're training like a bodybuilder, putting creatine in your shake during your training session with some like simple carbs, that can actually enhance how full the muscle will appear. So creatine as well. Now 5 grams. Okay, 5 grams twice a day is generally the scientifically studied dose. So if you take 5 grams in your pre-workout, 5 grams during or after, you're getting the optimal dose of creatine. Beta-Alanine. Now this is once again another misunderstood ingredient. People think of beta-alanine, they think of that itchy feeling before the gym, and unfortunately paresthesia is a side effect to some individuals for beta-alanine. Okay, now what beta-alanine does is it's like a lactic acid buffer. So if we go back to our runner who was just doing 100 meters, now we're going to make him or her do a 400 meter run. I'm sure if you've done a 400 meter run, you know how brutal it can be. So the first 50 meters is a breeze. 100 meters, he's in full flow. He or she's in full flow. By the time you get around the 250 meters, you're starting to slow down a bit because once again, you've just burned through all of your fast, readily available glycogen and energy. And now the lactic acid system is kicking in, and the buildup of lactic acid is what burns and is telling you to slow down and stop. You can't fight it. You can train the system if you're an elite level athlete. Like I know Michael Johnson, they said at one point, he was able to hold his breath for the entire 400 meter race. Which basically stopped, which was one of the factors in stopping the lactic acid buildup so much. Basically what beta-alanine will do is it basically buffers that lactic acid. So rather than it all flooding through into your quads, your calves, your hamstrings and everything, if you're doing that 400 meter run, beta-alanine is basically going to act more like a sieve. So you can't stop it, but it's just going to slow it down. Okay, it's going to slow it down, which in turn will help you achieve more in the gym, on your tabs, on your run, in your workout. Pico 2. Pico 2 is a fairly new ingredient in the industry. It's basically, Pico 2 is a trademark name. It's a combination of mushrooms, reishi mushroom, king trumpet, turkey tail mushroom, amongst others. Collectively at a dose of 2 grams or more over like a 28-day period can give you fantastic improvements in Pico 2. Pico 2 is a fairly new ingredient in the industry. It's basically, Pico 2 is a trademark name. It's a combination of mushrooms, reishi mushroom, king trumpet, turkey tail mushroom, amongst others. Collectively at a dose of 2 grams or more over like a 28-day period can give you fantastic improvements in strength and force and power output. So it's going to help you be more explosive in the gym. Now, Pico 2 is something, unfortunately, that needs to achieve what's called saturation. So saturation is essentially where you need to have it consistently in your blood. Now, it doesn't mean taking it all day, every day, but if you're taking it in a pre-workout supplement before every workout, or you're taking it as a standalone ingredient, say on the days you're not training and getting in your pre, you take it on those days as well, you can expect some really good results from it. And then the last one is called betaine. Now, betaine is also known as trimethylglycine. Betaine is a fantastic ingredient. It's being used more and more in pre-workout and intra-workout supplements. It's very versatile. It basically works synergistically with Pico 2 and beta-alanine and creatine. It can help muscular output. So there are more, of course, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to cover the ones to look for. So we've got creatine at 5 grams, beta-alanine at 3.2 grams. If it's less than that, it's underdosed to get the clinical studied effects. Pico 2, which obviously the mushroom blend, 2 grams, and betaine at 1,000 milligrams or more. Once again, this is dependent on what the pre-workout is trying to give you. So these are what we're looking for, really. The stimulant obviously is person dependent. You may not like stims, you may love stims. This is dependent on you. Performance is what we're looking for. And I think all those work very well synergistically. They all improve performance, backed by science, tried, tested and studied, but make sure you're taking them consistently and you're hitting these doses. Hydration. People don't think of hydration with pre-workouts. Hydration is, once again, going back to the first video we did talking about immune system, hydration is more important than that, because if you're dehydrated, all of this just falls flat on its face, as you probably know. Yeah, and hydration is the most underestimated tool there is. So what can we take in a pre-workout to enhance our hydration? Good old-fashioned Mother Nature's Lucozade, coconut. Yeah, coconut powder. A lot of brands now are getting coconut water. They're dehydrating it and they're using the powder to put in their supplements. Salts, obviously, the most common one used nowadays, a lot of powerlifters use it, is pink Himalayan salt. It doesn't have as high sodium as normal regular table salt, and you hear all the bad stuff about salt. So pink Himalayan salt you can use sea salt. It depends on your taste. Obviously, naturally it's going to salty your pre-workout, so you've got to bear that in mind with taste. Creatine as well is in there because, once again, as we just discussed, creatine is an osmolyte. Creatine is basically going to help with obviously, you know, hydrating the muscle and hydrating the cells in and around the muscle. So there are others, once again, but I'm just trying to you know, kind of add to that. But there's one I've actually forgotten, and I'll write it down now. And it's actually probably one of my favorite ingredients, and that is something called glycerol. Now, glycerol is basically glycerol is essentially it's an osmolyte, but what it does is it draws water into the muscle, but it does it at a rapid rate. So like we have a product, 5% Nutrition, called Full As Fuck, which is a stim-free nitric oxide pump product. And it has a lot of blood flow ingredients, which we'll come on to now, but it also has a shed load of glycerol. And the feeling you get is, as long as you're hydrated, when you're training, if you're doing a weight session or whatever, the muscle just has like a swollen, inflated feel to it. And that's because of the glycerol. But if you put glycerol in a pre-workout, as long as you're drinking plenty of water, it's going to help to osmolyze that water and it's going to keep you hydrated. So a combination of any of these is fine. Personally, of these, I would probably go for these two if it's strictly hydration, because this is more natural and this is something I know for a fact works effectively. Blood flow. Obviously, this can be a bit of a double-edged sword, because if you're someone that is training for endurance and you're training, if you're doing a CrossFit WOD that can last, say, an hour, hour and a half, the last thing you want is to be so pumped that you can't move. Or if you're going to be doing a boxing session, you don't want to take a pre-workout or a supplement that's going to increase blood flow too much, because you're going to get so full with blood, it's going to become, you know, it's going to have an impact on your performance. However, under the right setting, the right circumstance, if you're doing a weight training session, a bodybuilding session, if you're doing some accessory work, if you're a strongman or powerlifter, blood flow is going to be imperative. Okay, remember, our blood carries all of the above, but it also contains amino acids. It contains the proteins you've been eating, the carbs you've been eating, the fats you've been eating. You know, it contains everything we need to perform at the best of our ability. So the most common one you'll see in a pre-workout is called citrulline. A lot of companies will use something called Citrulline Malate, which is citrulline bonded with malic acid. And what they'll tell you is that the malic acid helps absorb the citrulline much better. There's that much truth to that. The reality is they're just diluting their citrulline to get more bang for their buck when they buy their raw ingredients. That's essentially, in a nutshell, what it is. So citrulline, back about 15 years ago, when I started training and I was going to a proper old school gym, a lot of the guys in there, they were just popping arginine tablets. And arginine is an amino acid that basically is supposedly dilates the blood vessels to get better blood flow, better pump. But then more starting to come out